Hello, everyone, and welcome to Lumio Palooza 2026. I am Katie Yarn, our social media strategist with Lumio, and today we're lucky to be learning from Dr. Devon Caldwell on higher impact learning, Lumio for high school and beyond. Devon is a university instructor from Brandon, Manitoba, and we're very lucky to have her here today. So for folks joining us, let us know in the chat, where are you joining from? You can also share what you're most excited for, what you want to learn today, what you're curious about, any of those early questions, put them in the chat. And feel free to also use it for any questions along the way. We'll make sure to answer as we go. Just as a reminder, the session is being recorded. And since you've registered, you're going to receive that recording via email early next week. Keep an eye on your emails as well as the chat. We'll be sharing links throughout, including your survey link at the end of the session. During the session, if you have something that you like, snap a photo, snap a screenshot, and share it on socials. Make sure to tag hashtag LumioPalooza 2026. We'd love to see it, and then you can also be entered to win an e-gift card. So let's get to it. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Devon Caldwell to the stage. Hello, Devon. Thanks for being with us.
Katie, thanks so much for introducing me. And hello to everyone who's joining us today. I see a fellow Manitoban. So hi, Joseph. Thanks for being here, as well as lots of our American friends and someone from Romania. And Romania is one of my favorite countries to visit. So thanks for being here today, Daniela. I'm excited to talk about all things Lumio and high school and higher education.
That's awesome. I am so excited to hear all of your insights. So please take it away.
Well, I would love if people can join my class and participate in the activities and follow along on the slides. So I will just put my join link in the chat. So you can just click on that, or you can go to lumioclass.com and then enter my class code of 482839. So my session is called Higher Impact Teaching, Lumio for High School and Beyond. And I'm really excited to share how I have used Lumio to really transform my teaching at the post-secondary level. So as Katie mentioned, my name is Dr. Devon Caldwell, and I have a funny role in education. I'm at both ends of the spectrum. So I spend 2 days a week teaching nursery and kindergarten at a First Nation band-operated school in rural Manitoba. And then I spend the rest of the time teaching pre-service teachers at the university level at Brandon University and Nipissing University. I'd love to connect with you on socials. My information is down below. If you're on Instagram, it's kgeducation.ca. Blue Sky and Twitter are India0309. And of course, you can always reach out to me by email at hello@devoncaldwell.com. So please tag me in any of your posts about this session. Okay, I always love to find out what your role is in education. So I've tried to present as many possible options as I can. So hopefully no one has to choose one. So please take a moment and let me know what you do in education. I'm going to talk more about response in Lumio throughout the session today, but it is one of those things that I use for formative assessment to find out what my students know, as well as to help me plan my instruction for the next class. Okay, so I'm seeing a couple of high school teachers, one K-8 teacher, and one university or college instructor so far. So I can see that 83% of participants have answered. I also have a technology coach and one other. If you don't like viewing your results in this bar format, you can also click on the chart, which gives you a different view of the data. Okay, so for high school teachers, 1K to 8, we've got a university or college instructor, a technology coach, and someone with another role in education. Okay, so as Katie mentioned, I'm going to be talking about all the ways I use Lumio in higher education settings. So even though all of my examples come from the university classroom, they are extremely applicable kindergarten to grade 12. Many of the things I'm sharing with you today, I also use with my young learners in nursery and kindergarten. So all of the examples you're seeing today come from my Brandon University classes of pre-service teachers in their second, third, and fifth years of the program. So this is a template called Flip Out. And I love using Flip Out as a way to share content with my students in a way that is a little more engaging. So I can have Flip Out projected on my interactive whiteboard in the classroom, and I flip the cards over. Or my students are able to flip the cards over on their own and access the information that way. So I'm using the Flip Out template from Lumio to talk a little bit about some of the challenges I was experiencing in my teaching before I started using Lumio. So this was kind of the problems I was having. So one thing was too many logins and passwords. I was using all different kinds of platforms to accomplish many different purposes. And as a result, I had a ton of usernames and passwords. And then if my students were accessing those platforms too, often they had to keep creating accounts. Remote student participation was an issue. I taught at the university level throughout the pandemic, so I taught fully online. And then when we returned to classroom teaching, I had regular student absences due to illness. And in the Faculty of Education where I work, we have a really strict attendance policy. So I want to do as much as I can to enable my students to attend remotely. So I was discovering that if my students weren't able to attend class in person, it was really hard for me to turn the class into something that they could learn alongside the class online. As I mentioned, tons of usernames and logins, and just a lot of tool and platform fatigue. Where I was spending valuable class time teaching students how to use the platform rather than getting into the important content. Another challenge was I feel like my university teaching was far too teacher led and too much lecture. Formative assessment was an issue. If you have ever taught a class of high school students or adult learners, it can be sometimes really hard to read the crowd and read their faces. And you don't know if they're with you or not. So formative assessment is really key. And often with adult learners, they don't want to put their hand up and ask in front of their peers. So as many opportunities as I could provide to find out what's going on with their learning and check in only strengthened my teaching. And the final challenge was disengagement and lack of participation in our adult learners, especially in online settings where no one's turning on their video, it's just crickets in the chat, and no one is engaging or interacting with you. So in 2023, I started using Lumio, and this tool provided a lot of solutions for me. So with Lumio, that was my answer for regular formative assessment. It really increased student engagement, participation, and my students' willingness to ask questions through tools such as the shouted out template. I found that Lumio really strengthened my ability to activate my students' prior knowledge and find out what they actually knew about the topic before I started teaching. Instead of death by PowerPoint with me scrolling through a million PowerPoint slides, there were opportunities for interaction, student collaboration. Another thing that really solved for me was the ability to deliver the class flexibly. So I could teach live in person, I could teach live online, and I could also teach remote asynchronously with Lumio. And I'm also offering a session tomorrow afternoon all about how I use Lumio for remote, online, and asynchronous learning. Another real strength of Lumio that was a real solution to some of the problems I was experiencing was the fact that Lumio can be accessed on any device. It's cross-platform. If my students show up in class with only their mobile phone, they can access that. They can use a tablet or an iPad. They can also use a Chromebook or a laptop or a workstation, whatever they have. So it works for all of those different devices and platforms. So as I mentioned before Lumio, I was using PowerPoint slides. There's many tools and platforms for my students to learn, many logins to remember, the lack of flow, and everything had to be synchronous, everyone doing the same thing at the same time. Now that I transitioned to doing all of my university teaching with Lumio, we're all using one platform all the time. So once after the first couple of classes of using Lumio, we all know what we're doing, and it is quick and easy to get into the learning activities. It allows me to provide that consistent format so my students show up and they always know what to expect. And as I've already alluded to, it allows me flexibility in students joining remotely, online, or joining in person. Okay, so here's some examples. Before I was using Pound. Now I'm using Lumio Shout It Out and their entrance and exit tabs. I used to use a shared Google Doc or a Microsoft Word document. Now I'm able to use a whole class whiteboard or a group workspace, which divides students into groups. We'll see a little bit more about that later. I used to use Socrative, Kahoot, or Wayground. Now I use Response and Lumio, which we've already used in this session, or something like Monster Quiz or Team Quiz, like a fun game-based activity to test student recall and practice key terms. Before, YouTube videos, which used to be full of ads. Now I still use YouTube videos, but I can embed them in Lumio and remove all the ads. I'm not throwing shade on any of these tools. I still love all of these tools and I still use them from time to time. I'm just finding that with all of Lumio's features, I don't need to go out and access a bunch of different tools and platforms now, which is really nice. Okay, so maybe you're sitting here and you're thinking, okay, well, this sounds really good, but I've been teaching the same courses for a long time and all of my slides made, and I do not want to start from scratch somewhere else. Well, the good news is you don't need to. My jumping off point is I always import my existing content into Lumio, and then I add the interactive content. So you can import your existing PDF, PowerPoint, or notebook files if you have smart notebook files on Google Slides as well. And that way, you're not beginning from the very beginning. Instead, you're able to take what you already have and then just enhance it with the many different features in Lumio that I'm going to show you. So when you're creating content, as I mentioned, there's a number of options. You can import your existing content. You can also create in Canva and then export to Lumio. And the slides you're seeing right now, I made them in Canva. That's why they're so nice and pretty. And then I sent them over to Lumio, which works really, really well. You also can, of course, embed YouTube videos and other third-party content. You can see right on the right-hand side of this slide, it says embedded content, and you see the book creator logo. So you can embed things you created in Book Creator right in your Lumio slides, as well as a number of other third-party tools. You also can create right in Lumio, and that is another very simple and easy option. So as I mentioned, there's YouTube videos with no ads, which is probably the best thing ever. So when you're creating a learning experience, you're just clicking that plus button, and then you'll see right front and center YouTube. Click on it, copy and paste your YouTube link there. It adds it to the slide, then it removes the ads. This is great because regardless if kids are 5 years old in kindergarten or adult learners at university level, keeping kids within the Lumio environment rather than sending them off to YouTube with all of its distractions and sometimes inappropriate ads just leads to much better classroom management and much better focus for your students. And if you don't want to import your old lessons that you've already made in different platforms, or you don't want to start from scratch, Lumio also has AI Assist lesson generation. And I really thought to myself, well, this might be good for kindergarten to grade 12, like social studies or science or different ELA. I didn't know if it would work at the university level. And you can see an actual prompt that I used to create a lesson. And I just asked Lumio's AI Assist to develop a lesson to teach teacher candidates about the difference between phonemic awareness, phonological awareness, and phonics. The lesson should take about 60 minutes to complete. I set the grade as post-secondary language English. And then I also can go in and link to Manitoba curriculum if I'm discussing something directly from the Manitoba curriculum that they'll be teaching, and then click generate. And it starts off by giving you a fantastic outline. You can go through and select what components you want to use. And there you have a lesson created for you by the AI Assist feature. So that does work at the post-secondary level too. As I mentioned, we've got lots of flexible delivery options. So once your lesson is created and you mouse over your lesson on the file, this is what it will look like. Start new. That means you're starting it right now and everyone's joining you live at the same time. Assign new. That means I can generate a link and then I assign that to students and they can access it asynchronously. So 90% of the time, I'm teaching in person. I've got all of my learners there. So I'm just doing start now. Let's say I have a couple of students who are absent that way. After class, we'll click on assign new and I'll send them a link and then they're able to access the content and complete the activities with their own pace. When you are working asynchronously, and I'll talk more about this, you can view your student work and responses under class sessions. And also when you're teaching live, all of that student information is saved in class sessions. So you can always go back and look at it. Okay, so the question for everyone who's joining me today, we're using whole class whiteboard. So that means all of you are on the same slide at the same time together. So I'm asking you, what is your delivery method? I've cloned that penguin, and I would love it if you could drag the penguin to how you usually teach most often. So is it live in person? Is it live online? Is it online asynchronous? Or is it other? I see there's 13 people with me in the live lesson. So it looks like everyone here is used to teaching live and in person. So this is the whole class whiteboard where everyone is in the same space together, similar to being in a shared Google Doc or a shared Microsoft Word document. Okay, oh, I thought I won online asynchronous, but that person moved. So this nice option to using response or poll is allowing all of my students just to work together in one document and then drag and drop or type their response or attach an audio file to share what they're thinking. You can see I've got it toggled on to everyone can edit. And then after I'm done teaching the lesson, I can go into class sessions and I can review this information. What if a student writes something, you delete it? Yes, I can delete that right now. It's gone, or it should be gone. Just a second. Delete. So, funny story. I was outside of my university classroom working with a small group, and they were teaching a lesson online via Zoom to a grade 6 class during Global Read Aloud. And then I had the rest of my students completing like self-paced activities in Lumio. And I had taken my laptop with me while I was supporting my students in the other room. So I was just checking in on Lumio, seeing how my students in the regular classroom were doing. And one of my students had drawn like an obscene picture on one of the slides, but I was able to click on it in real time, delete it, and then post a note saying your teacher is watching. So yes, you can delete things. You can also change responses and you can write back to your students in there. Can you ban a student from being able to participate and write more messages? Yes, I think what I could do is I would just go into my list of students, I would click edit, and then I would remove that student. And Katie, you might know more about this than me if there's a different way of doing that if you want to chime in.
That is correct. Yeah, you can remove students from your lesson, but anybody who is in your your session, your class, would be able to participate just as anybody else. So yeah, you get the option to remove them from your class if they're being disruptive.
Thanks, Katie. Okay, as I mentioned, Lumio's provided a great solution for my formative assessment issues so that I'm able to find out what students know and then adjust my instruction accordingly. So let me show you some of the ways that I use Lumio for formative assessment or assessment for learning. Okay, so when you are in Lumio and you're creating a lesson, you just create that plus button and then it pops up this screen. And right here, under templates are two of my favorite tools for formative assessment. Shout It Out, which is kind of like a whole class bulletin board where students can kind of like stick sticky notes of either images or text. And then response, which can be a poll where I'm asking their opinion, or it could be checking their understanding with more factual based questions. So those are two of my favorite things right there. As I mentioned, there's AI Assist for creating lessons in Lumio. There's also AI Assist for creating response questions in Lumio. So let's say I'm going to check my students' understanding about a topic. I can go to Lumio AI Assist. I choose multiple choice as my format. Here's my prompt. How should a teacher design a community immigration project to maximize authentic learning? And then these are the questions that are developed by Lumio. And then I'm able to go through and edit them and delete them and choose which questions I want to include. So you don't need to make up all of those questions yourself. You can use the Lumio AI Assist to do that for you, which is really nice. Okay, other times you're not going to use AI, it's more of a poll. So this is me polling my students to find out what support they need from me to be successful with their assignment. What do you need to successfully complete your Lumio lesson? And then these are the options. And at a glance, I'm able to see who is feeling really confident and able to be successful with their lesson and who might need more support. I also do this often on the first day of the week on Mondays or Tuesdays, depends when I'm teaching. I do a mental health check-in just to find out how everyone is arriving that day too, and let my students know that I'm available to chat with them after class. Okay, so this shout it out looks like. As I mentioned, it's a tablet style bulletin board where students can respond via text or images, and they can respond anonymously or with their name. That's below the settings and up to you how you set that up. And it can be one big bulletin board, or you can have a number of categories. So I set this one up with categories. So ask me some questions about these assignments. And my students, these are the 4 assignments that are coming up over the course of the semester. I found that using Shout It Out has dramatically increased participation in my university classes, especially if I have it set to anonymous, because students feel just that much more willing, able, confident to engage with me and engage with their classmates when they don't put up their hand and speak, or when no one knows who it is that's asking. So I found Shout It Out is a fantastic way to really boost student participation and engagement while providing me with that assessment data to help me plan more effectively. Exit tickets are also a fantastic formative assessment tool. So if you click that plus button, and then there is the whole area called questioning and reflection. So click on that category, and there's an exit ticket right there. And you can go with the prompt that is just already there on the template, explain what you learned about the topic, or you can unlock it and you can change it to whatever you want. I was just in a fantastic session with Anthony Howell a few minutes ago, and his prompt for an exit ticket was pretend your friend was absent today. Tell them everything they need to know about the topic. And while students are working on these exit tickets, I'm able to monitor everyone's screens at one time in a live view in the teacher view. Okay, so as I mentioned, there's lots of opportunities for flexible groupings. So sometimes students learn independently, other times they work in small groups, other times we work as a whole class. How that looks in Lumio. So first of all, you can determine the pacing. So right now for this presentation, the pacing is teacher pacing. So it's me advancing the slides, not you. Sometimes I set the pacing to student, which means you could move through all the slides as you needed to. So if I presented some content and then students are working in maybe a small group, they need to refer back to that content, I'll change the pacing to student pacing so students can move between the slides. And right here with the magic wand, so if you have a slide in Lumio, it's something students can view, but they can't interact with it. If you want students to have their own copy, you turn that into individual handout, and then they can write on it and interact with the content. If you want students to work in small groups from whatever's on that slide, group workspace. If you want all students together on the same slide, like when I asked you how you most often teach with the penguin, that's a world class whiteboard. And we just adjust that setting with the magic wand. So this is an example of an individual handout. So every single student was given a copy of this slide and they all created their own text set. This is an example of the group workspace. So I wanted students to work in small groups to look at the key components and big ideas of the Manitoba Social Studies curriculum. So I just had to determine how many teams. So I had 30 students. So if I did 6 teams, there'd be 5 students in each group. And students can all move to the same table and take their devices, or they can all stay where they are in the group, or all stay where they are in the room, and then just basically work remotely. Once you create your groups, you can also move students around if you have some students who work better with other students. So just to show everyone what that group workspace looks like, how many teams would I like? Why don't I say 6? And you can see it moves you all into teams. I can move people around as needed. And then I start the workspace. And then everyone is working in a space with a couple of other people. So that's what a group workspace looks like. The only times group workspace can be problematic is if people are late joining your class and you've already started a group workspace, you can't add them in after. Okay, let's keep moving along in the interest of time. We've already talked about whole class whiteboards, and that's where everyone in the class is working within the same space. So very similar to a shared Google Doc or a shared Microsoft document. And as we talked about, teachers can remove any inappropriate content and you can remove students from the learning experience. So 3 different ways for your students to engage with content. Lumio is a fantastic library of graphic organizers. So when you're pressing that plus button to add a slide, if you look down in the bottom row, there's graphic organizers. And in order for students to interact with those, you have to decide is it an individual handout, is it a whole class whiteboard, or are they working on it in small groups? So this is an example of using the FRAYER model. So this was something a student completed individually to demonstrate their understanding. Another graphic organizer that is available as a template is this describing wheel. And this is my students looking at the global competencies in Manitoba. I like to provide opportunities for my students to reflect on their learning as an opportunity for them to engage in assessment as learning. Lumio has many tools and templates that make student reflection on learning very easy. So as we've talked about, just shout it out. So I've done a walking podcast with my students where we listened to a podcast about sound walls as we walked around the campus. And then we came back to the front lawn of the campus and we did an inside outside circle activity. So this was my students reflecting on their learning and thinking how they could apply it to their practice using shout it out. And this is set up in 4 folders. I'm able to export that as a PDF after we've used it. So the learning is not lost and I have a record of that later. So when students are reflecting on their learning, there's many questioning and reflection templates, such as plus, minus, interesting, 3 facts, 2 questions, 1 opinion. Do you agree or disagree? A 3, 2, 1 countdown, a 6-word summary. And all of those are available for you to edit as needed. So you can really customize those. You don't just have to go with the existing template. Okay, so let's try shout it out together. I saw someone sharing in the comments. They love Shout It Out and they plan to use it at their staff and teacher conferences. Yes, Shout It Out is great for all ages. With my young learners, I use it set to the image format and they're able to use their iPads and take pictures of things and then upload those pictures. So if you'd like to contribute to the Shout It Out, a challenge in my practice Lumio could solve or something you're interested in trying. Lumio group whiteboards for brainstorming. Yes, those work very well. The group assignments, we just learned about that today. Yes, group workspace is fantastic. Just make sure all your students are in the lesson first. AI assist for response. Yes. So there's AI assist for entire lesson creation, AI assist for response questions. And Lumio's just added a beta feature. If you have beta turned on, you can upload your existing lesson or open an existing lesson you've taught before. And then down towards the bottom lower left, it will say AI assist. If you click that, Lumio AI Assist will review your lesson and then it will add to it and improve it for you. So that's a new feature in beta. So AI Assist is a challenge that Lumio could solve for you. Likely the challenge of time and making all these new things. Students too distracted by other things. Yes, if we just have them in the Lumio environment, it does remove some of those distractions. Reaching out to different levels of learners, such as adapted and AIL learners. Yes, I was in a fantastic session today, all about immersive reader. And you see that immersive reader does not work in Shout It Out, but you can use immersive reader to read content on screen as well as translate languages, which is so exciting. Okay, thank you for sharing, everyone. Okay, so I can sit here and tell you how much Lumio has changed my practice, but I think my students' words are probably more powerful. And at the end of last term, I said to my students that this is completely optional, but if you're willing, I'd love for you just to share like your thoughts on using Lumio this term. So these are my students' anonymous thoughts. And you can see I just used Shout It Out to get their feedback, and then I just screenshot. So as a university student, these are my students' experiences with Lumia. You can see that a lot of them are talking about it's interactive, it keeps them engaged, it's fun. So you see engagement comes out really strongly. Also, one account and everything's in one place. So that's some of the feedback my students gave me. And then when I asked them how they felt about Lumio as a future teacher, they were able to share this information with me too. Easy to monitor progress even when you're out of the room. I'm pretty sure they were referring to the time we had that inappropriate sawing in a group workspace. So, as a takeaway for you, I'm sharing a roadmap for how you can use Lumio at the higher education level. So, of course, always like the gas that we're putting in this car is considering UDL principles, student choice. Lumio is fantastic for student choice in how they respond. So, for example, I didn't spend a lot of time talking about this, but there's, of course, the attack audio feature. So students can share their ideas through typing or through printing with a stylus, but they also can drag out like an emoji, like that little penguin, click the drop down arrow on it and attach audio. They can record their voice. I can also record my voice and attach it to my slides and provide audio instructions or audio narration. So these are the steps we move through: activating prior knowledge with tools such as Shout It Out, entrance ticket, and response. Create and share content. So maybe that's starting from scratch. Maybe that's making slides in Canva. Perhaps that's using Lumio AI Assist. Maybe it is importing slides that you used the last time you taught this content and just adding the interactivity to them. Provide audio instructions. So add instructional audio to slides as required. Tomorrow, I'm talking a lot about instructional audio because I'm talking about online asynchronous. But I also find, especially with my younger learners, if I have audio instructions attached to a slide, rather than them coming to check with me 25 times for what they should do, they can just listen to my voice. And it definitely cuts down on how many students are asking questions. Step 4, students demonstrate learning. So that could be through response, game-based activities, graphic organizers, choice boards, include individual, small group, and whole class activities. So that nice variety, that flexibility. Step 5 is reflection. Maybe that's with exit tickets, Shout It Out, response, graphic organizers. Step 6 is the instructor. You're monitoring and providing support. You are getting real-time data from your students, and you're able to see that on individual thumbnails live, so you know what all of your students are doing. And then you're also able to go into your class sessions after you've taught the lesson and look at all of the different metrics that are available to you and export those as PDFs. And then lastly, you're going to review student work and your assessment data in those class sessions and make decisions about what you're doing next. So thank you, Sarah. I'm glad you loved the infographic. I loved your session today on Indigenous languages. That was so great. Okay, we're almost at the end of our time together. So that's a wrap on my session. If you have any questions, please ask them in the chat. or reach out to me, hello@devon.com, and then keep learning with these resources. I love being part of the Lumio community. I'm a certified trainer as well as an ambassador, and connecting with the global community of educators is probably the very best part of it. Did you want to chime in on this at all, Katie?
No, not at all. Actually, I would love to know where people can connect with you online, on socials, or even in your email.
Okay, so kgeducation.ca on Instagram, or you can always email me at hello@devoncaldwell.com. And then I'm on LinkedIn just as Devon Caldwell. So lots of
Awesome.
opportunity to keep learning with Lumio throughout the year. And then finally, if you're interested in becoming an ambassador, you could scan that QR code right now and join today and be part of our wonderful ambassador community. And then, of
There
course,
is
we're
a
seeing lots of
question.
great, oh, sir, we're seeing lots of great sharing on socials today. So please make sure to contribute to that. Okay, what am I seeing?
Absolutely. I took a screenshot of your roadmap, and I wanted to share that on my socials. I thought that was so awesome. I do have one question from the chat. Dr. Bonnie is asking if there are any students who don't like joining or participating, and what might be an option for them still with Lumio.
Okay, so I have not encountered this with Lumio. When I used to encounter this was when I was asking students to create accounts on different platforms, and students were reluctant to use their email, to give away their data, all of those different things. So with Lumio, students aren't using their data because they're just typing in their first name, or they could use a nickname and joining my class. So that's taking care of a lot of that. And then, of course, if students like don't want their name attached to something, that's when I give that option of anonymous participation. And then, of course, I'm never showing anything with student names on it on my like what I'm projecting to the class because all of that is kind of on the teacher side of things. And it's only me seeing their name. So I set a time for my end time and we're at it. So I think that is really the two things.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's the best part of Lumio is that, you can participate in ways that you feel comfortable in doing so, and you don't have to, raise your hand and speak up in front of the class anymore. You can do it in ways that, yeah, you're comfortable in participating. So that's really great. Well,
And
thank
I
you
guess
so much, Devin. Sorry, go right ahead.
I would just add to that with Dr. Bonnie's question. Um, Also, I like to give my students like multiple um, options for how they participate and share their learning. So, for example, participating in in-class activities may not be optional, but how they choose to demonstrate their learning, I often provide choice boards, and there'll be lots of like no tech options for sharing their learning. So I think that helps with that too. Okay, and Gary, Katie's just posted the link to my lesson, the teacher share link, so you can grab it right there.
Yes, you bet. I also have the survey link in the chat already, so make sure that you fill that out before you leave. That's how you get your certificate and your PD hours. So thank you again so much, Dr. Devon. That was an incredible session. Um, I would love to see you in more Lumio sessions. So check out Lumio Palooza. We have more sessions tomorrow. Would love to see you on social media. So make sure that you're using hashtag Lumio Palooza 2026, as well as tagging Lumio Social. But thanks again for joining us, and we will see you in the next Lumio Palooza session.
Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the conference, and thank you, Katie.